Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm for Classic and welcome to MindsEye, a game from the co-developer of the GTA from Rockstar that decided to leave the studio to create their own kind of GTA game, which is not even close to a GTA and it is actually a different game. Talking about different game, this game it is using Unreal Engine 5.4 I do believe, and it is not being well received on Steam at the moment, with most negative comments regarding the community. Also, the console version sucks. I have seen the performance of Xbox Series X, and there are a lot of moments where the game it is not running at 30 frames per second. There are tons of stuttering, and so as to be expected, we also don't get too much of a great performance. Just like the consoles, and well, that's not even surprising. Still, my recommended settings for this game it is to play at 1080p high settings with 67% of TSR. This is essentially upscaling from 720p to 1080p using TSR. Not using upscaling on this game it is a mistake because a lot of components get temporarily unstable for some reason. So Unreal Engine relies a lot on upscaling. And well, since we have AMD, TSR seems to be the better option in my opinion. So by using the high settings with 67% of resolution scaling, the core experience should be above than 30 frames per second. Alright, that's what I do expect you to have in here. And there is a huge bottleneck in here. Alright, and it's pretty noticeable, or even more noticeable near the city. But even outside the city, as you can see in this desert in here, we are having a bottleneck over here, and there is a lot of frame times inconsistencies while traveling. The first beginning hour of the game it was pretty cool since you didn't need to drive um, near the city or even close to that, so performance seemed normal, and even the moments where you needed to shoot, it was fine. But as soon as you have the possibility, like you are seeing in here, to drive throughout the city, well, everything just gets ruined entirely. Okay, so for comparison, the median settings with textures with the same TSR runs mostly the same. As you can see, since we have a CPU bottleneck, performances it is mostly the same. 1080p high without any upscaling and using TSR at 100%. It also runs around the same frame rate, so sometimes both of the two settings, 1080p median with 67% of TSR and 1080p high, also have the same performance, so due to the CPU limitation. But going 1080p maximum in here, it just proves too much, given that the game drops more often than not below than 30 frames per second. So moving on to 1440p median settings while using TSR, and 57% of those TSR upscaling resolution, which should be something pretty much close to 900p. Performance is again at the same level as 1080p with median or high, so I'm just around 30 frames per second while driving, which is quite unfortunate. And yeah, it is like that. So 60 frames per second it is out of the question in this game, at least while driving or traversing the city, which doesn't shock me because if you look to the requirements of this game, these guys aren't really requiring too much of a GPU. They are requiring an RTX 2060 or an AMD Radeon RX 5600 XT. But when it comes to the CPU, they say that the minimum for playing this game it is a Ryzen 5 56X 5600X. So we are below the minimum requirements in here. And for the recommended, they do recommend the almighty Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, which is a very strong CPU. When it comes to the GPU, it does recommend an RX 6800 XT or an RTX 4070. So I think, yeah, this is more in line what is to be expected and more in line with what we have with other Unreal Engine 5 titles. It's really just the CPU that seems to be the issue in this game. And given that the consoles are running very poorly, what I'm expecting for the future of this game is that they polish at least the bugs that they have, and then find ways to optimize their CPU performance. So if they do optimize, we get a much better experience on our Ryzen 5 3600X, but still I don't think we will be able to get locked 60 frames per second, or not even close to that, given that the consoles also target 30 frames per second. There is no 60 frames per second mode in here, but I just hope that they do find ways to optimize the CPU performance on this game, not only to help the PC version of course, but also to help the console versions, given that they are actually very miserable in that sense. But yeah, so for the comparable setting, we have in here 1440p high settings with upscaling, 67% of TSR. It is maintaining above than 30, but I do think that is somewhat risky in some points. And as for 1440p high native, it just drops below than 30. So you might try to, try different values of TSR. And now, just to finish all of this, I'm just showing you my recommended setting for 4K, which is median settings, high textures with 50% of TSR. So by using this setting, we are essentially upscaling from 1080p to 4K and having median settings. It is my recommended setting because the performance it is more in line with all the other settings, and there is nothing too much to talk about in that sense. So, what can I tell a little bit about the settings? One of the differences that I've noticed the most in between median settings and high settings, it is the shadow quality. It's very visible during the cutscenes, for example, and the reflections on the cars. There is a huge difference in that. That's really what I do notice. Also, shadow distance. The difference it is quite big. But apart from that, there are obviously differences, but those are the ones that I've noticed the most, without going out with a magnifying glass comparing both of the settings. Okay, so what can I tell about the first 1 hour of the game? A lot of cutscenes and skippable ones. They are all in-game cutscenes. They are not pre-rendered, okay, which is good news. They are rendered with the engine itself and running in real time, and they are pretty good. Okay, and the story, don't get me wrong, whatever people that are completely against this game, the story is interesting. Alright, I was intrigued with the story and I really enjoyed. I could really get inside the characters' feelings and thinking and traumas. So I think it's pretty great. I'm intrigued and I'm actually curious how this game will unfold. And like I said, cutscenes are very good. Voice acting I really did enjoy, and I think that's the best thing about the game. It is really probably the story. I don't know, it was just 1 hour, but cutscenes and everything, it was really good. So at least they know that's something. Now, what isn't that really too much bad, it is really the gameplay. Gameplay wise, I mean, it's pretty generic. It's a third person shooter, very generic with the cover system that it is meh, and with the gameplay that it is okay, so nothing special. And when it comes to driving gameplay, it's passable, okay, nothing special in that sense. But performance, it is really the thing that I just want to say bad words about it. And I could give up if this was only on the PC in that sense. But even consoles are struggling a lot with this game, and that's quite unfortunate in my opinion. So, and just to finish, 4K high settings with 57% of TSR, performance it is just under than 30 frames per second for the most part, so I don't really do recommend this setting. It is just for you to have an idea how it does run. My recommended settings for 4K is median with 50% of TSR. For the 1440p it is median with 57% of TSR, but you might want to try with I don't know. And for 1080p, my recommended settings it is to use high settings and use TSR. Okay, I'm using 67% of TSR on 1080p and it's pretty good, but the game default preset for TSR at 1080p on high it is 87%, so I think you can also try that if your target it is 30 frames per second. Alright, no 60 frames per second for this game. If you have a Ryzen 5 3600X, just forget about it, it's very demanding and requires definitely more optimization on both consoles and the PC. So that's all that I want to talk about this MindsEye quick test, quick benchmark. Hope you did enjoy the video and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.